What's up everyone, my name is Arctic and welcome to another episode of Titanfall Tips and Tactics. In this video I'll be providing information on Titan loadout setups with the 40mm cannon as the primary weapon of choice. The 40mm is probably my most utilized primary weapon. It's really versatile, and that's one of the things that I like about the weapon. It deals out great damage to Titans, and you can also deal with pesky, annoying pilots that are all jumping all around you and doing all that stuff with the 40mm as well. When facing off against enemy Titans, I think the 40mm is one of the best weapons to master. It's very good long range, medium range, and even close range, so it's very versatile. And like all primary weapons, once you pop that crit spot, oh boy, you can deal some very good damage against enemy Titans. And you know, it's really hard for me to say that I think that there's a better weapon. It's definitely up there, probably in the top 3 for Titans. As for strengths and weaknesses, starting with the strengths, I think the 40mm is excellent against Titans. Again, I mentioned that earlier. Has a decent ammo count, consistent rate of fire, deals great crit damage. Overall, it can be excellent if you have pretty decent aim and know how to kind of position yourself against Titans. It's also good against pilots because of that rate of fire, but it also deals a small amount of splash damage against pilots. So if you happen to miss that direct shot, but you hit the ground beneath them, you'll deal that damage. So it usually can result in like a 2-shot, maybe 3-shot, depending on, you know, if they've activated stamina or whatever. It can also deal with multiple Titans. Now, I would not recommend it, but if you have good management with your abilities and your ordnance, you can handle multiple Titans no problem with the 40mm. The downside is that you know, they recently reduced the ammo count on the 40mm from, I believe, 24 at max now down to 16 at maximum. So that's if you have extended magazine, which is probably what I would recommend anyway there. Weaknesses, it's not great against ejecting pilots. It's not good against pilots with height advantage. So like if they're up on a roof or something like that, you have to have that pinpoint accuracy to kind of instantaneously turn them into that vapor cloud of blood. And it's not great against Doomsday Titan kills if you're looking to get the pilots on the way out. Because of that damage, that very consistent rate of fire on the damage, once you hit them, you know, if they get to a point where you're not at a distance to close on them and then you put them in a doom state, you know, it's not much leniency there, so you need to be very close in order to ensure that you're going to get that kill, as opposed to the chain gun when you're kind of running towards them and you're whittling them down as you close the distance, and then you can melee almost instantaneously when you, you know, turn them into that doom state. So not great against pilots in general, very good against Titans. I think it's very well-rounded, but there's a couple weaknesses that are worth pointing out. And I didn't mention game modes today because, quite frankly, it can be used in pretty much every single one. Now, for personal playstyle recommendations, the 40mm is perhaps one of the most utilized Titan weapons in my arsenal. It stood out to me in beta and at launch because of the high ammo count and the damage it could deal to multiple Titans and pilots without really needing to reload at all. So it kind of served as that all-in-one weapon, very versatile, and that's how I like to play. Now, the weapon itself stands out mid to long range, but can be utilized in almost every single type of Titan versus Titan encounter, and I would say pilot versus Titan encounter as well. Depending on the game mode, I'm typically calling in my 40mm Titan as my second one, more so for the mid-game meta that kind of emerges. And that's one that's typically has more Titans on the battlefield because that Titan timer is reduced to, I believe, 2 minutes after your initial call-in. So I like to play a sort of a cat and mouse game with the cannon. One of the typical things that you guys will see me do is kind of using it like a burst damage weapon like quad rockets or arc cannon. So I'll be weaving in and out of buildings, up and down streets, just so I can make the other player kind of reposition themselves after I you know, put some shots of damage into them. This is really good with the burst damage accessory or burst fire trigger on the 40mm as well. So kind of think about that when you are trying to utilize, okay, how do I want to play this? Do I want to be kind of a burst guy? Do I want to play at distance and put up a particle wall? I've seen those used to some extent as well, and they're great for the 40mm cannon as well. In open space, I'm typically trying to strafe left or right with dashes mixed throughout and maintaining a certain distance so that I always keep myself at an advantage. And the idea behind, wanting to strafe left and right, depending on, what you're facing off against, is just so it makes it harder for you to track. And if you're facing off against another 40 mil player, you're going to want to continually dash in open space and strafe left and right so they're missing their shots and hopefully you're hitting your own. It's also worth noting that I don't typically aim down sights while I'm using the 40 mil unless I'm at a far enough range that I feel it's necessary to kind of finesse some of my shots. The act of actually aiming down your sights and firing typically means that I'll have less time to react to another situation. Let's say an enemy pilot is within my vicinity or an enemy Titan is, appears behind me, because I'm zoomed in and you don't have that peripheral awareness. So that's just something to keep in mind. And my chassis of choice is obviously the Atlas, but I'm going to tell you guys what, the Ogre is excellent with the 40 mil as well. Now, as for my Titan loadout builds with the 40mm, starting with the Atlas, my tactical ability is really game mode dependent. I will say lately I've been using the particle wall a little bit more because you get that stationary type feel. You can get a lot more damage output depending on where you're at without taking incoming damage. So I've kind of been leaning more towards that. It's more of an Ogre style of play, but I've been utilizing it with my Atlas. My ordnance been the rocket salvo and cluster missile. I just have loved those. Tier Kit 1, Tier Kit 2, pretty much the same. I will say I use my tactical reactor a lot more with the 40 mil than I probably do with any other. Maybe Arc Cannon might come close. And then Tier Kit 2 is Core Extender and that accelerator. Now, as for the Ogre, things are nearly identical. I think the only difference is that the tactical ability, I use electric smoke a lot more with the 40 mil just to try to get out of dodge sometimes, dealing with pilots. Everything else is the same as the Atlas. And with the Strider, it's about the same. I use the Vortex and the particle wall. I don't use electric smoke too much with the Strider in general because I don't feel like I get rodeoed a whole lot whenever I'm with the Strider. Everything else is about the same, but that's how I pretty much build my Titans. I think the last lingering question is probably burst trigger or the extended magazine. I typically lean more towards the extended magazine, but I will say that was pre-patch. Post-patch, I do like the burst damage more because I have more rounds, but sometimes that's not always better because I am finding that I have to zoom in a lot more when I use the burst trigger, and I don't like zooming in that much when I'm using the 40 mil. So I really think it's your cup of tea. I think I've done really well with both of them. It's really hard for me to pick a winner there, and some of you guys might swear by either one. So I have no personal preference there. It's really up to the player. And that's it for today's episode. Next week I will be covering the quad rockets. Really looking forward to that, but I hope you guys enjoyed it today. If you did, please make sure to give the video a like. And please be sure to subscribe so you guys don't miss any more of my Titanfall content in the future. Stay frosty.